We turn now to news out of Heidelberg, and Manqoba Ntombela, who is and was a respected entrepreneur, artist and teacher, was murdered outside his home in Ratanda, allegedly by spaza shop extortionists. The Black Entrepreneurs Alliance has condemned the killing and is calling for urgent action. Joining now is the Alliance's CEO, is Refilwe Monageng. Good morning, Refilwe. Welcome to the program, and I think it's appropriate to start with condolences to yourselves as an organization and to Manqoba's family.
Good morning, Iman. Yes, you are quite correct. We would like to send our heartfelt, sincere condolences to the Ntombela family on the untimely loss of their father and their family member. It's quite sad, especially like you rightfully said, in the entrepreneurial community and in the artist fraternity.
Wow, somebody that really had an impact. Then we'll talk a little bit later on about how you honor and continue to honor his legacy as the BEA. But you have condemned his murder and you are calling for justice. Just take us into the broader picture of extortion and violence targeting township entrepreneurs. What's been your experience?
Well, since, and this I'm speaking out of context in a sense that it differs with scenarios. If you look at Soweto and if you look at what has been happening in the areas of Ekurhuleni, whereby majority of areas in Ekurhuleni, they've made sure that they don't have foreign-owned national operating spaza shops there. Whereas in Soweto, there's still parts and majorly that are still operated by foreign owners. So the uncomfortability of the fact that South Africans are seemingly unhappy with the fact that their economy, which is worth over 700 billion rand, is currently in the hands of foreign nationals. And the government has tried to intervene through the registration program. But with this, we still don't have facts to say, but why would it also get to a violent stage? Because we were believing and hoping that negotiations at least would ensure that there is a transition and equitable partnerships and participation between locals and foreign-owned nationals, which are legally here in the country.
Well, let's go to that, because your statement does focus on competition from foreign nationals. How do you strike that balance then between economic inclusivity while ensuring fair conditions for South African entrepreneurs without inciting xenophobia? Well,
this is where we also would cite that the Gauteng government has failed as an entrepreneur household. If you look at the Gauteng Township Economic Development Act, it's a beautiful piece of legislation which has not been implemented. If you look at Section 2 of that act, it speaks about involving locals into the value chain whereby they could coexist with multinationals. And we're saying, I mean, we are happy also with this spaza shop fund, but this is not what we are looking for. We are looking for markets. If our entrepreneurs in South Africa had access to markets, they'd be able to sustain the funding that we're speaking about and ensure that we don't have to fight and scramble for market. And also to conscientize South Africans to say, when we speak about proudly South African, buy local, we need to start buying from home, because charity begins at home. And it's these type of things and conversations and education which we need to have with the communities, with the entrepreneurs and with government. Because if you look at, if you had to play a piano, we're singing from different chords or playing different chords if you like.
Yeah. I want to go back to not only this particular incident, but the trends that it does expose around how these extortion networks are operating in your space. What light can you shed on that? And are there specific hotspots that you've noticed?
Yes. You see, extortionists work in both ways, especially, and in this instance, it's very sad that majority of extortionists seems to be South Africans, because they seem to see a gap to say, these ones are here illegally, we'll let them pay protection fee in order for them to exist in our communities. You must remember the fact that people from Somalia, Pakistan, Bangladesh that are here, there's a culture shock. That's the basis of everything. There's a culture shock, and they don't understand the communal dynamics between us, and we don't understand them. And the fact that we don't understand them, those dynamics, people see an opportunity to ensure that they act, and they act like a bridging gap for the foreign national to exist in our communities, to say, we will give us X amount of money, we will protect you for you to be here. And if they don't have the correct papers and procedures to be here, they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be operating businesses, even from a health perspective. I mean, you could hear from people of Naledi the fact that they've lost children, South African, whom are South African citizens. People are still unhappy about that. So it's important that even what has happened in Ratanda, as much as it's said, law enforcement and the economic development needs to come together and reset the button in terms of saying, how do South Africans really reclaim their economic space? Because you'd appreciate, Iman, people are currently struggling to survive, especially for market. Because if you have a market, you'll be able to fend for your family. Like Manqoba's family are now, I don't know how the future would look like for them.
So when you talk about these extortion rings, it sounds like what you're describing is that those who are allegedly there illegally are being preyed upon by
Yes.
South Africans in order to be able to trade in the community. How do you think someone like Ntombela got caught up in all of this? If the allegation has been made that his murder, his death comes at the hands of spaza shop extortionists?
Well, Iman, I wouldn't want to assume or try to preempt what could have happened, because I don't have first-hand knowledge. I was not there, and would leave it to the law enforcement agencies to be able to investigate and get the facts, because there could be a series of events that has led to his death. And so maybe in due course, the law enforcement agencies will be better placed and positioned to guide us to say what exactly happened and what is the modus operandi that was used to ensure, I mean, in your domicilium, you feel safe and you know that this is a space where people know you and you couldn't be harmed in your own home. So if it has happened like that, what more with other entrepreneurs? That's why you would see that with foreign nationals, if you go to their spaza shop that are containerized, it's really guarded, like in terms of safety and security, like maybe they're carrying a lot of money or stuff. It's because of such. So we believe in Ubuntu that you must be accessible, and that's why we never find security costs to really what do you call this, maybe implore on ourselves security costs to say, let me pay insurance and a private security to be able to guard me in my own hometown. I feel safer there. But what has happened is quite sad.
So you also, I mean, part of, I think, one of the issues is this is part of a bigger situation with the way that entrepreneurs in townships or the local township community is managed and handled. As you said, there are great pieces of legislation, but when you think about how you work on an everyday basis, it doesn't seem to have expression there. What specific policy proposals or partnership models have you as the BEA put forward to either national or provincial government to address township safety and the sustainability of business?
With regards to safety, I mean, we're about to write a proposal to the business fraternity, like Business Unity South Africa, and also ensure that we speak to the Department of Trade and Industry to implement the national, or rather to introduce the National Township Economic Development Act, because currently you'll see a lot of migration from other provinces to Gauteng, because Gauteng is the only one that has the Gauteng Township Economic Development Act. And also with municipalities, how do you ensure that you consistently train entrepreneurs in terms of compliance? I mean, we've seen, we've always become a reactionary society, whereby after there's an incident, then will come the registration and stuff, but now it's silent. But the question should be, how many entrepreneurs at the moment are complying with regards to ensuring that they register their businesses, ensuring that as far as safety and security is concerned, does the local municipalities know how many spazas are there, in which street, what type of security do they need, even community police forums. So it's those things that we need to talk about. I mean, we know as the Black Entrepreneurs Alliance, we're also advancing. There's an NPO business that we're trying to introduce in communities called GTO, the Gauteng Tactical Unit, GTU rather, Gauteng Tactical Unit, to ensure that our communities are safe. Because we've also appreciated that the South African police services, they have their hands full in terms of addressing crime in our societies.
Well, you do want decisive action over an historical issue, an issue which, as you're saying, without understanding the anatomy of the players in that space, it's very hard to devise a plan that would be effective, because we don't know how many entrepreneurs, as you say, so this information isn't in the system. So what exactly do you think can be done? You understand the space better than most. It's where you work. It's where your members work. In terms of specialized policing units or a task force that focuses specifically on economic crimes in townships?
So here, especially here in Gauteng, we looked at the Gauteng wardens. And the fact that Gauteng wardens are usually walking around in communities in terms of assisting with crime issues. We see this as an opportunity to ensure that they could bolster administrative issues in the police station, for example, assisting with proper registration of statements, assisting as investigating officers with compiling dockets in order for them to go to the courts so that the justice system can move smoothly and ensure that even the correctional services comes on board. And why it's important for the correctional services to come on board, to ensure that we don't have repeated offenders, which is called recidivism. Now you could see that people that commit such crimes like one of Manqoba are people that in the recent past, we've learned that it's repeated offenders because if someone has committed a murder, they seem to be prone to commit another one. So in this value chain that we're speaking about, plug in the Gauteng wardens to ensure that they assist so that there's no backlogs. And then in the courts, ensure that they consistently keep their discussions with the police and the correctional services so that if people are put into jails, we don't have them as repeated offenders. Either you rehabilitate them or they stay there.
I mean, it sounds like you understand what's needed, right? And you understand what your members need to make them feel safe and for them to continue transacting and have their business. Who is listening to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Who's listening? And who's willing to implement what we're proposing? It's another. So at the moment, I'll say government has a whole lot of things to deal with. It would be unfair of me to say they're not entirely listening. There are those ministers, MECs, MMCs that are listening. But the willingness of our government to implement certain things, there are MECs and MMCs and ministers that are willing, they are trying. They are trying. We can't say the whole government is not. But there's still much to be done. And it goes back to the leader of government business, which is the deputy president and the president. We believe that they should put their foot down and ensure that there's implementation of things. And we would put the squarely on the foot of the deputy president because he's the leader of government business. So anything that deals with government business is squarely on his feet. And we are also advancing this discussion to say, Mr. Deputy President, can you kindly ensure with the Department of Public Administration that at least there is implementation of these beautiful policies that our country has.
Have they responded? Are they?
No, in fact, the Office of the Deputy President and the Office of the Deputy Minister of Public Administration, Minister Pinky Kekan, no, they have responded, and we are still in the preliminary discussions in that respect. So I should give it to them that they have at least responded. Now we still need to get to the action of public administrators implementing the policies that they have as government.
Well, just whisper to our producers when that happens so we can cover that and carry that. But let's then go to the way that we started of how you're planning to honor Manqoba's legacy in a tangible way.
Well, it's not only for us as the Black Entrepreneurs Alliance. You must appreciate he was a teacher and also an enterprising artist. I mean, with his hit song, Stokfela, you can appreciate that the Stokfela, it's a business, which there's also another business as BA that we've turned into an enterprising venture. So it's important that you also consult with the family. It's not something that we should just give a knee-jerk approach and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. But consult with the family to say, how best would you want us to remember Manqoba? And also in consulting with the artist. So it should be a collaborative effort and not one that we want to single-handedly champion. But we would like to also extend our heartfelt, sincere condolences to the people of Ratanda and Manqoba's family to say sincere condolences, and we are also with you in this difficult time.
Refilwe, thanks for stopping by. We wish you success, but also to keep safe, you and your members.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your time. Refilwe Monageng is the CEO of the Black Entrepreneurs Alliance.